Ron Starworth, are you for the revolution and the liberation of black people?
Spike Lee is one of the most iconic filmmakers of our time, so it might surprise you to learn that after an influential 30-year film career, he has only just scored his first Oscar nominations for Best Picture and Best Director this year for BlacKkKlansman. Which leads us to wonder, why is this the film that finally got through to the Academy?
I'm just happy to be talking to a true white American.
Amen.
On the one hand, there's a simple explanation. The Oscars' penchant for delayed recognition, or makeup awards. Like when they gave Martin Scorsese Best Director for The Departed to really acknowledge his earlier masterful films. Or how Leonardo DiCaprio's Best Actor win for The Revenant was generally understood to be a kind of Lifetime Achievement Award. So we might say Lee's nominations are righting the wrong of overlooking 1989's Do the Right Thing and his other films since. Still, BlacKkKlansman is a significant work in its own right from a mature director who's achieved mastery over his medium and message, and is still at the top of his game.
Even though the story took place in the 70s, I still thought it was a great opportunity to comment on the world we live today with Agent Orange in the White House.
So we're going to walk you through the most salient things about this movie and how it shows the director doing what he does best, proving that film has power, and speaking about today in signature Spike Lee style. If you're new here, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell to get notified about all of our new videos. In many ways, BlacKkKlansman is the quintessential Spike Lee joint, featuring all the director's most recognizable trademarks. In our Spike Lee video, we talked about Lee's distinctive techniques. So now let's look at how BlacKkKlansman harnesses these to full effect. We hear,
"Why don't you wake up?"
Almost all of Lee's films issue this command.
Wake up! Wake up, wake up, wake up!
Wake up.
Here, it comes right after Ron and his colleague discuss the possibility of David Duke running for office, in a clear nod to President Trump.
America would never elect somebody like David Duke, President of the United States of America.
Many in the past thought the Trump presidency inconceivable.
There's not going to be a President Donald Trump. That's not going to happen.
Just as we in the present may be watching this movie about the 70s, comfortably feeling that the worst of racism in America is behind us. So in this moment, BlacKkKlansman issues a wake-up call, urging us not to be so naive.
Coming from a black man, that's pretty naive.
There's a double dolly shot, Lee's signature tracking shot, where both the actor and the camera are pulled on dollies, so it looks like the characters are floating or being propelled forward. This is what makes Ron and Patrice appear to glide down the hallway at the end, where they see the burning cross outside, followed by real footage of the Unite the Right rally in Charlottesville and the attack that killed Heather Heyer. Lee often incorporates real photos or video footage to remind us how his movie connects to the real world. Ending with the Charlottesville footage is a way of showing that not only are white supremacists still active in our world today, they're not even hiding anymore.
And with this guy in the White House, he's made it okay for these supremacists, white supremacists, to come out in the open. They're coming from out from the rocks, and he's legitimized them. And I wouldn't even call it dog whistles. He's like on a bullhorn.
There's a nuanced look at race through an idiosyncratic lens.
God bless white America.
Lee plays up the exaggerated, absurdist feel of these events, letting us laugh off this exaggerated portrayal of these characters who are set in the past, only to pull the rug out from under us as he reveals that they're all too real and current. David Duke may seem silly and cartoonish.
I consider you a true white American hero.
Is there any other kind?
But at the end of the film, we're reminded that this is an actual person who is still active and dangerous today.
This is the first step toward taking America back.
It puts forth a dialogue between the radical who wants to tear down the system versus the moderate who seeks change inside the system.
We fight for what black people really need, black liberation.
Right. So can't you do that from the inside?
No, you can't. The white man won't give up his position in power without a struggle.
In many ways, BlacKkKlansman is a companion piece to Lee's most iconic movie, Do the Right Thing. That earlier work offered a devastating critique of police brutality in a black neighborhood. But here, Ron is proud to be part of the police force.
I always wanted to be a cop, and I'm still for the liberation of my people.
It's not that the circumstances have changed all that much since Do the Right Thing. Police brutality in America is still dire today. What we are seeing here is Lee's personal evolution. In Do the Right Thing, Lee aligned himself with the radical side of the debate.
In this day and age, in the year of our Lord 1989, I'm leaning more towards the philosophies of Malcolm X.
In the nearly 30 years since, the director may have become more open to working within the system for more moderate, stable progress.
Don't think just because I don't wear a black beret or a black leather jacket, black Ray-Ban screaming "Kill Whitey," that I don't care about my people.
Sorry to bother you, director Boots Riley criticized BlacKkKlansman's representation of the police, saying, quote, "For Spike to come out with a movie where story points are fabricated in order to make a black cop and his counterparts look like allies in the fight against racism is really disappointing." But Lee isn't arguing that all cops are on the right side of justice.
Now we are being shot down like dogs in the streets by white, racist cops.
And most crucially, wherever Lee stands personally in this conversation, he continues to give a voice to both sides of this debate in his movie, just as he always has.
So you think all cops are racist?
It only takes one to pull the trigger on an innocent sister or brother.
It references film history. BlacKkKlansman opens with a scene from Gone with the Wind, the Civil War epic that, if you adjust for inflation, is still the highest-grossing movie ever made. We also see footage from The Birth of a Nation, D.W. Griffith's 1915 silent film.
Today they'd call that kind of movie a blockbuster. Everybody saw it.
Lee uses these movies to remind us of cinema's racist legacy, how the medium has been used to dehumanize black people and promote a sympathetic view of the Confederacy. Lee also references the blaxploitation genre in stylistic nods like the repetition of the musical theme and explicitly in the script.
Shaft or Superfly?
What?
Pick one.
A private detective over a pimp any day and twice on Sundays.
Blaxploitation movies were inherently contradictory. They were empowering on some level because they made cool, self-determining black characters the heroes.
Where are my manners? I didn't even introduce myself to you gentlemen. My name is John Shaft. Freeze.
But at the same time, as the genre's name implies, these films played up certain damaging stereotypes.
That image does damage to our people.
Jeez, it's a movie. Give it a rest.
I can't let it rest.
So through all these movie references, the director is reminding us that, while we might think of cinematic history as an academic topic removed from our everyday, movies have real power in our society. After all, The Birth of a Nation is what revived the Ku Klux Klan in the first place.
It was so powerful that it gave the Ku Klux Klan a rebirth.
But by responding via his own film, Lee takes control, shaping our perceptions through cinema himself.
There is one film missing from this list that deserves to be on it because, ironically, it might tell the biggest truth of all, and that's Do the Right Thing.
The year that Do the Right Thing was excluded from most categories at the Oscars, Best Picture went to Driving Miss Daisy. Now, BlacKkKlansman is up against Green Book, which some have called this year's Driving Miss Daisy. Both driving movies are well made and touching, but they offer up a more or less sanitized version of race relations from the perspective of a white person, with a neat racism is solved ending.
I'm doing the best I can.
Me too.
Well, I reckon that's about all there is to it then, ain't it?
Meanwhile, looking back, we can't help but find Do the Right Thing even more truthful and prescient than was clear at the time.
We had the crystal ball. I mean, I think we predicted what happened with the LA riots.
So we see history repeating itself in the news, at the box office, and at the Academy Awards. Lee's film gets this and intentionally draws parallels between the past and our present. We hear plays on the language of right now.
America first. America first.
We had to find things in the script that automatically would ring bells and people said, like, that shit is happening right now.
Near the end, we see the racist cop get his comeuppance.
I could even bust a cap in your black ass if I feel like it. Nothing will be done about it.
Jimmy, did you get it?
Oh, yes, I got it.
Flip, did you get it?
Oh, yeah, I got it.
Chief, do you get it?
Oh, I really, really get it. You're under arrest.
What?
While Ron is celebrated.
There he is, the man of the minute.
Don't you mean our Flip?
It's one of those neat endings where racism appears solved, like we might recognize from a lot of movies on this subject. But this is Lee faking us out, before he goes on to underline that this couldn't be further from the truth. It may be demoralizing to recognize how little lasting progress we can point to, but the best thing we can do is to heed Spike Lee's eternal command and wake up. The first step is becoming conscious and remaining aware. If we want to solve this problem, we have to face it head on.
We must unite and we must organize to form a base to fight racism.
BlacKkLansman cleverly links the idea of passing
That's what some light-skinned black folks do. They pass for white.
with going undercover.
You undercover or something?
This comes through in the way that Flip conceals his Jewish identity.
You're Jewish, brother. The so-called chosen people. You've been passing for a wasp.
And how Ron doesn't tell Patrice he's a cop.
Are you a pig?
Excuse me?
At one point, Flip talks about how pretending to not be Jewish has made him think more about this part of his identity.
I never thought much about being Jewish. Nobody around me was Jewish. You know, is that passing? Well, then I have been passing.
So often we don't reckon with our otherness. If we have the chance to fit in with mainstream whiteness, this tends to feel easier than to claim our heritage or true identities.
I was just another white kid.
Mad Men creator Matthew Weiner once said that his show is about, quote, becoming white. That's the definition of success in America, becoming a wasp male. Even though Don Draper was already, of course, white, Weiner is using the concept here to mean something broader, that aspiration to become the totally accepted insider. But as BlacKkLansman shows, sooner or later we run into barriers that force us to acknowledge the other within ourselves.
They're going to know the difference between how a white man talks and a Negro.
How exactly does a black man talk?
So the message is that we have to embrace the nuance and complexity of our identities, instead of disavowing any part of them.
It is time for you to stop running away from being black.
In this story, Ron's perspective as a black man makes him a better detective. Because of his experience as an other, he can see things and transcend boundaries the white police officers can't.
Chief, some of us can speak King's English, others speak jive. Ron Stallworth here happens to be fluent in both.
You might notice that this detective story doesn't really have a mystery to solve. The white supremacists are the ones who are trying to uncover a plot in their midst.
Now put that strap on your arm. Put it on your arm!
But on a deeper level, the central mystery of this movie is the question of racism itself. Why the ideology persists and appeals so overwhelmingly to some.
All you get now is how we gotta cater to them. Now watch your mouth. Well, don't say this, don't say that.
And how people use it to justify wrongs, to willfully blind themselves to the humanity of others. So by passing or hiding that other part of yourself, you play right into the agenda of bigotry, helping further the assumption that to succeed in society, you must essentially become white.
Well, God bless white America.
God bless white America, sir.
Near the end, Ron and Patrice are arguing about their views on the police.
Have you handed in your resignation from the Colorado Springs Police Department?
Negative.
But after they hear the knock on the door, they're suddenly united. because they face a much greater threat that doesn't distinguish between their differences of opinion. The KKK doesn't care whether you're an activist or detective. To them, you are your race. And Lee's final message is that wherever you fall in the radical versus moderate debate, we're still ultimately on the same side, and we need to be united against racism.
That detective, did you ever get his name?
No. I don't think I...
Are you sure you don't know who he is?
Hi guys, it's Susanna and Deborah, and we are The Take. If you like what we're doing and you're new here, please subscribe.
And if you have the means and you want to, please consider supporting us on Patreon.
And there's also a new feature here on YouTube where you can hit that join button and become a member right here.
Thank you so much for watching.